conversation. I know there's a couple more questions, so we'll get to you as well. We're just shifting a little bit. I hope that feels okay for everyone.
These are great questions, by the way.
Yeah.
One thing that I admittedly hadn't thought about as a trans person was how difficult it would be for family members, parents, to tell other people, because it's this huge deal when you're a trans person to come out to people. It takes so much courage and you have to really figure out who you are. So when I was reading the process that you went through when you were telling your own parents, that was really fascinating to me, and I would just love to hear more on that.
No, go ahead.
We were super lucky. I mean, we know that. My mother has since passed away, and my father died previously, but her husband, who she was married to after my father died, they were great. They were totally great. I mean, zero pushback. Questions, appropriate questions, but zero pushback, and they were great. And Angie's parents, the same. Angie's mom, being the inquisitive person that she is, asked 25,000 questions and then asked those same 25,000 questions so they're 5 more times. But that's good because, this is a process that she was, kind of sharing with us, her process of kind of working this through. We are incredibly fortunate because we didn't have anybody push back, anybody in our family, and that is rare. So in a lot of ways, our story ain't no typical story.
Yeah.
But I would say that I think that people surprise you, So when you just are like, this is who I am, love me or leave me, love me or leave my child, we're not backing down. A lot of people are great.
Yeah, I think oftentimes, I oftentimes expect the worst response and really happy to get the better or the more comfortable response, I guess, the response you're looking for. For folks who haven't read the book, it's really great for one. That's, I think, goes without saying, but it really goes through the chronologically, Eve, kind of coming of age and telling and joining the family in her story as a trans girl. And they do go through a lot of like the different relational dynamics of things around politics and church and family and friends and even like doing news things and legislature. So I think there's a lot of really rich information in there for folks if you are in any of those arenas. I know looking at why some folks are coming, that you are all coming from a lot of different spaces. So I think the book really covers a lot of the area. And one of the things that I think often happens when we're, I think sometimes trans people can get so defensive when it comes to like language. And again, like I can find myself sometimes assuming that somebody dislikes me first. Instead of assuming the best, I tend to assume the worst. And so one of the things in your book did that to me. And we've talked about it outside, but you guys used the word transgenderism a few times. And the first time I heard it, I was like, and then there was quite a few times about it. And I know you guys and have known you for some time. And so it was quite this like feeling of like, ooh, that's not a word that I like or that I use. I feel like it's a word that's been used to harm my community, either by religious people or spiritual people or medical people. So my first thought was like, I wanted to talk a little bit about your choice in that word and your understanding of that word. And I think just in general, I think the take home for me was really to not make assumptions. And I love that I had a relationship with you already. So I wasn't just like, even though I kind of was a little bit at first, like to be honest, I was like, every time I read it, I was like, oh, it's like, you can do this, because it's a really great book and there's a lot of really great information. And that word, for whatever reason, really gets me. I think it's just my own spiritual.
Thank you for your honesty. And I apologize. That's mine. I put that word in there. That's all on me. So if that offends anybody, I am sorry. Totally sorry. words carry different freight for different people. And what I was trying to, we were discussing, it's like, it's an attribute, like athleticism or cynicism, optimism, cynicism. So that's why it was in there. And I had zero idea. So this is actually really great. People come up to us all the time. I read your book. I've learned a lot. I learned a lot after reading my own book, which is kind of cool. So I appreciate you sharing that. But it was literally just an attribute, and it was just a really stupid mistake.
No, it's not. I wouldn't call it a mistake. I think it lends to us being in conversation with people about the words they're choosing to use and why they're using them. I think your decision to use the word or even like using the word is not an issue. I think it was just something that I wrestled with as I read the book a little bit.
Yeah. So don't use that word.
No. Yeah. There's a question out there.
Could you explain more what that?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah. So transgenderism, my understanding was, it was a term that was used by people who were conservative Christians mostly, and a term that was used around trying to convert somebody from their transgenderism. So like my understanding of the isms were like racism or alcoholism, or like it was, like it was an ism that was in a different limelight. It was a diagnosis, it was a disease, it was an ailment of some sort, and not as an attribute, which makes sense to what you all were saying. But I think just because I have a lot of my own spiritual trauma, I'd say one of my biggest challenges has been my spirituality with my transness, even though I believe my living into my transness is a spiritual awakening. So I think for me, it was just one of those words that I heard from people who weren't nice to people like me. And so I just kind of took it as one of those words. It's kind of like the word homosexual is not a term that many gay people refer to themselves, but oftentimes people will refer to gay men or women as homosexual. And that's maybe more of a clinical term or,
Right.
than like a human term, I guess. So again, some words have been used to harm us in other ways, and I feel like we've gotten past that. So again, that's why language, I think, is so important to not just take it for what it is, but to actually have a conversation about like why we chose that or why, that sort of thing.
I know when Eve was reading the book, she's like, you have like transgender male and transgender female, and she's like, that is just weird. And I said, well, it's medical. Like, that's what we do in medicine. Like, we all use terms that you think are weird. Sorry.
I think it's really powerful that, like, especially in the state of Idaho, that you are such vocal advocates for the trans community, and you have such a history in your religion. And I think that is going to be really effective in reaching people that we could never reach, and the fact that you're using that privilege really to reach those people means so much. And also, I think that it's just great that your professions, like you're coming at this scientifically. So when people would tell you things, you'd be like, they'd say, oh, well, I read this on the internet. You'd be like, well, you didn't read that in a peer-reviewed journal. And like, amazing, that's exactly what we need right now. But I think that unfortunately, you can read just how upsetting it was that you had to leave the church. And there was one quote that I particularly loved, but it was becoming increasingly clear that there was an insidious rift developing in our church community regarding the nature of reality. And I read that a couple times because wow. And I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit more, maybe just on that perspective coming from, medical backgrounds and dealing with people in that regard, and just how this all affected your church, like your relationship with your church. Wait, you got one?
You want to talk?
I was super proud of that line, so I'm glad you caught it. Sometimes these things just come to you, so she's taking credit for it. whatever. I read it. Yeah, so I think one of the things that this has really been kind of eye-opening for me is that so much of what we as individuals hold to be true and unquestionable and foundational is really based upon things we believe and we've been told. And while there's tremendous room for belief and faith, when it comes to applying that reality to someone else, I think we need to tread really lightly. And so for me, that kind of certainty that we were wrong and that, there's only two gender, whatever, that you're welcome to believe that. That's totally fine, but you don't have our permission to make us live by that. And that's where, for me, it became kind of a thing. And again, I dearly love these people back here who we still are in spiritual community with, but I could not be a part of that church anymore.
Mhm.
But they aren't either.
Right. They right. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we all know. So,
They also
and when they write a book, they'll tell their story.
reality, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the context of our story, as most of us in the room were here 5 years ago, with the pandemic. I think it just, Warren Buffett said, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. And that's what the pandemic did. It's like, what? These people believe this crazy stuff. Yeah, so it was kind of in this whole mess of, a different reality. And that was really, to me, eye-opening about like, oh, these people get their information from different sources than I do. And we're going to agree to disagree completely on a lot of things. And I think in a way it maybe, made it easier to just be like, there's a lot of things we disagree on. And yeah.
I had a question about, so the book is written from Michael's point of view, but I know that it's not like Michael's book, or, Michael didn't necessarily write it all on his own. I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of, I guess, tell me more about like why you chose that, and was Eve involved as well?
No.
Well,
So one of the publishers that we, shipped this thing out to, it's very odd. They emailed me back and said, "Why didn't Eve write this book?" And it's like, because this isn't Eve's book. That's not what this book is. This is about parenting Eve. This is our perspective. So, right, which is a very strange thing. Anyhow, what was your question? It was a good one.
Why you chose to speak?
So I initially wrote like a 90-page version of this book that was kind of, it was a mess. And so, but it was, I thought it was great. So she read it and she's like, So we had Alan Heathcock, who helped us write the book, is a friend of ours, and he's a published author in Obama's list and all that stuff. So he teaches, and he has a company that helps people write books who wouldn't, don't normally do that kind of thing. So we paid him some money to read it, and he read it, and he said, and we met with him, and he said, "There's a story here, but this isn't it." And which is good. That's a good thing. And so he was the one who said, "Here's how we're going to lay this out. We're going to Eve coming up to Angie, the family, the larger family, the church, the community, that whole thing." So the way it was formulated was that way. The fact of the matter is, it's in my voice largely because I have more time than she does. Like, she's really busy, and so we both wrote. I would start, and then I would give it to her, and she would add her stuff, and we'd give it to Alan, and we'd take his notes, and we'd make the kind of blend all of that, and then we would meet with Alan, and then he would give us our feedback from that, where we go next, and then we go next. So this is like an 18-month process of meeting with him every 4 to 6 weeks. But there was equal contribution. It was just mine, I could sit down and write for 5 hours, and she can sit down and write for 15 minutes, 15 times. So that's it. We kind of tried to say, we've read books where they go, this is Mike, this is Angie. It's awful. Your brain is like, who cares? Just tell me the story. So that's why we did it this way, but we put a little author's note in there saying, here's why it was written this way. It's not my story. It's our story. It's just kind of the way we did it, just to make it a little more readable.
What?
Oh, right. How did that come up? Yeah, go for it.
My mom, who's no longer with us, she was like, why is this in Mike's voice? Why isn't it in your voice? That's such a mom thing to say. Yeah. And so I was explaining all this stuff. And then one day Mike comes home from work. We were both at home. He apparently listened to We Can Do Hard Things podcast. And he's like, thanks, Liz. And he was like, I was listening to this podcast today. Apparently I'm needy. And I'm sitting behind him. He's like getting dinner ready or something. And I'm off to the side and he's talking. And he's like, did you know that about me? So Mike's needier. That's why.
Awesome. That's a great answer. For me, I have a lot of daddy issues around my transness. My father doesn't talk to me at all. So I think for me personally, knowing that it was the father of a trans girl's voice, for whatever reason, that he spoke to a certain part of me, that I felt was, it made me like a less thought to be response. You know, I mean, like,
Yeah.
you weren't like perfect about it, but I think the fact that you were like, but that's okay too. I don't know. I think for me, it's just the fact that it was from a father's perspective, knowing that mom was there too, was really, I don't know, it was just really nice.
I'd just like to add to that really quick. If you haven't read the book, you really put yourself in front of a lot of bad publicity, and you kind of became a target for a lot of these attacks that people call you, all of these things. And I thought, just adding on to what Bonnie Violet was saying, that's amazing that you both were willing to do that, but particularly you so publicly to kind of shield your daughter and be the brunt of all of this ignorance and hatred.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we tell people, we got nothing else to do, so we're in the fight. Like, you picked the wrong couple because we got time on our hands. So, and we're not. I have time on my hands.
I was curious if you would tell us a little bit about what your experience was having Eve tell you first, and you having known it a little while before talking with Mike, and kind of how was that for you?
It's a
and
mom
your
thing.
relationship.
Yeah, what did you say?
It's a mom thing.
It's a mom thing.
Yeah.
It's a mom thing.
It's a mom
Yeah.
thing.
So, nothing occurs right out of the blue, right? So this is a child who's anxious and was struggling to get her schoolwork done, which still happened after she transitioned, by the way. But we were like, she's just having a lot of difficulty just dealing with life. I mean, she was like with the whole haircut thing and all this stuff. She was just anxious. And when she was 5, she'd be like, I'm afraid to die at night, every night. And and she was just very anxious. So at some point we, started kind of trying to figure out how to help her. And so she was going to some counseling. We were doing some family counseling. We said it was instead of our children having any sports activities, we were just doing family counseling. So Mike knew there was stuff going on with her. And then she was very tiny. This is all in the book. And so as she started into puberty, I thought, we should probably make sure she doesn't have like a growth hormone deficiency or something else going on. So we went to a pediatric endocrinologist, and that was the story. But, he knew all of this was happening. I was doing it all. But, so when she told me, which, happened in McCall at a coffee shop, and she was like, Mom, I want to go to coffee with you today. And, so we went, and he knew that. But, after she said, I don't feel like a boy. And I said, okay, what does that mean to you? Then I said, okay, are we telling other people? Are we telling your dad what's happening? And she's like, no, I'm not ready yet. And so I said, okay, well, I'll keep asking you. And, that reading at the dinner table was after a lot of like every week. Okay, how are you feeling about telling? So I don't know, did I answer your question?
Yes, you totally answered it.
Okay.
And I just love that you both like use she pronouns always.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
She's always been, and I just think that's really.
That didn't
special.
happen overnight. Yeah, we had a lot of times that she was pissed at us. Yeah.
Yeah, I especially had a really bad moment. We were in Las Vegas waiting in line at the roller coaster at New York. And I was telling my coworkers, who were all down there, a story of when Eve was younger. And I misgendered her because, and she freaked out. And it's like, what's your problem? And like, that's who you were then. Oh yeah, that's the proper thing to say. So yeah, that was really stupid of me. And so when you make a mistake like that, it tends to kind of, filter your thoughts more effectively. So I never made that mistake again, but I just did not make a mistake. I don't even think of her birth name. I don't run it through my head. I don't look at it. I don't anything just because I don't want to say it, because I don't want to hurt her.
But I think it's such a process. It just takes time. I remember a friend who long ago changed his name, which I don't really know why, because it was kind of a gender neutral name before, and then it was still a gender neutral name, so I didn't get it. But I said, I'm never going to remember your name. And then like 10 years later, I was like, wait, what was your name? I can't even remember it, right? And I think it's just a process.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool how in the book you never say her dead name. Never. Like, I thought that was such a unique take and so respectful that I was really surprised by it. And because I wouldn't even think to do that, and so I really commend you for that. That was really cool. One thing that I struggle with,
Oh, I was just going to say she did read this. Like, it was under duress. Like, we're publishing and we'd really want you to read this, but because that's her. She doesn't do anything if it isn't under duress, but except transitioning, by the way. But anyway.
One thing that I've been struggling with a lot just personally is dealing with being so angry with the people that just come at you with nothing but ignorance and bigotry. And there's a quote in here that I really liked that said, let's not make understanding a prerequisite for loving people and allowing people to live the lives they feel led to live. And I know that in this context, you're saying this to other people, that are being ignorant, but I really am trying to apply it to my own life to see the people that are ignorant or hateful of me, because my knee-jerk reaction is to just get furious and get mad. But I know that that's not who I am. And I want to be someone who can also show compassion and understanding, because I feel like there are still some people that are capable of having these conversations and kind of bridging these gaps. So I just really like that quote a lot.
So how do you manage that?
So Mike is amazing with a microphone, by the way. And in front of a camera, I take longer to think about what I want to say. But it's an amazing story of that quote or that statement. And he was interviewed by Jake Tapper, and he said he never thought of that before. It just came out and it was amazing. I don't know if you want to say anything.
I know we had another question back here earlier. I didn't forget about you. What are Brian doing? Did you have your hand? Okay. Please, here's a mic, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, it's fine.
You have other siblings? Do you have other children? Okay.
Yes.
Another daughter. And
Yes.
I'm just curious, what was her process?
Mm,
The transition?
good question.
With the family thing? Was she supportive? Did she struggle? Did she feel the loss of a brother? And
She did not feel the loss of a brother. She's has an interesting personality, and yeah, she like the moment she knew, she started calling Eve E, which was a really nice transition. It was something that so Eve's dead name also began with E, and E is really nice, by the way, because like he, she, E, like you could just be like, I'm just going with the E because then I cannot not get things wrong. And so yeah, so that, at least for me, was really helpful. But no, I think she was supportive from day one. I think, I think it's been difficult. I think like when you are a sibling of somebody that has more attention paid to them, whether it's a chronic illness or something else that's a little bit hard. She has a lot of jealousy. That's just part of who she is. So we try to deal with that. But it's not directly based on Eve being transgender. That's just who Isabel is, right? And but I think she's been incredibly supportive of Eve. And yeah, do you have anything else to say?
No, I mean, the one element I'm not sure we really brought out in the book, but Izzy was really into theater from a very young age. And Eve, like, never in a million years did I think Eve would even step on a stage. It's just, because of the anxiety and just the whole thing. And, then Eve did. And, like, she's amazing. And which is great. I mean, that she's in New York studying, theater. Oh, spoiler alert. Sorry. Oh, geez. Sorry. Anyhow, that I think bothers Izzy a little bit.
Yeah,
Because
probably more, yeah.
she chose not to study theater. She's studying archaeology, but she wanted to, Isabel did. And then just thought better of it. I think, good for her, because Izzy's amazing on stage, but she's like Al Pacino dark. And Eve is like, Carol Channing, like, amazing.
Or Glenda.
Sure.
Go, Linda.
There you go. So we're kind of glad that kind of diverged a little bit. But that is one thing I think that's kind of sticks in Izzy's craw a little bit, is that Eve gets to star in the musicals that she never got to. So.
But Isabel also got, like, she felt the tension with Eve and within the family. She is very intuitive and feels a lot, I think. And so I think when Eve came out of that and became who she was authentically, like, I think Isabel very much appreciated that.
Can I add something to that? One thing that I thought was really cute was when Isabel started to suspect that something was different with Eve. She asked Eve which letter for the LGBTQ thing, and Eve was like T, and like that was how she told her sister, and I thought that was so cute. Yeah, that really stuck.
In instances when you are talking to people who don't have personal relationships with trans people in their own life, and their views are so fueled by hate, misinformation, fear, all these misplaced emotions, what are some of the tactics that you use and advocating, helping them understand the truth around it. I'm personally navigating this a lot with people in my life. It's challenging, and to the point you brought up earlier, it's so hard to not just get angry. It's like, like, why don't you get, like, where are you coming from? So anyways, that was a tough one, but.
So she'll give you a better answer, but just let me give you two things. So when people say, how many genders are there? Two things. I don't know, neither do you. And then you ask them, how many points are there on a line? Because a lot of people would say there's two, one at each end, ignoring what's in the middle. So that's a good one. The other thing is with all the transgender sports stuff, because these are not real issues, by the way, folks. They're just making this crap up, but it's something to hang their hat on. So they want people to believe, our governor and everybody else, that when it comes to testosterone, there's boys up here and girls down here. And the reality of it is, it's like this. There's overlap. There are women in this room who could kick my butt at a lot of things that involve strength and whatever else. So another thing, co-ed volleyball, right? Like, I'm so sick of hearing people say, "Oh my gosh, it's so dangerous for girls to play with boys when it comes to volleyball." I work with volleyball players who have been hit in the head, and it is bad. But you know who did it? Other girls. So we take Eve's approach, which I want to be mad at these people and tell them what you almost said. But Eve says they just don't know. They're just uninformed. And so what I have found in my practice is people that I thought were we're not talking about this because this is going to be a bad thing, were really open, which was kind of shocking. And then I also found I have 8 patients who have transgender kids, which they never told me, because a couple of them had, but I wasn't safe or what have you. So give people a chance, be honest, but don't push. If they can't go there, it's not worth it. Talk about something else.
And I would also jump in and add that I think there are books we've written about our experiences, there are movies, there are plays that we're in, there are things that we do. And so maybe taking these folks to watch these shows or telling them about them or starting a book club with them or something. If folks are really open and really curious and want to really lean into it, I think those are some easy ways that you can kind of do it. And then it's us as trans people telling our stories instead of you feeling like you have to try to, teach them. And then people can see that there's a lot of different narratives and different experiences for us as trans and non-binary folks. And then we have a question right here.
So, I became transgender when I was about 5 years old. And at school, everybody was asking very uncomfortable questions. So I was it was really hard for me because, and then when I went to another school and I was really excited because nobody would know because they'll keep asking me these questions. And then I was like, I want to tell people now. And it was a great opportunity, but then they put it in an email, and then nobody showed up. Well, some people, but so then we had a 10 minutes to answer, and I was happy. I was in kindergarten, but I was so happy because I got to go in the first grade. And then it's really great there, and I'm thinking to tell my class this year. And yeah.
Thank you. I would say that being transgender is who you are, you're a beautiful person.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions from the audience? Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. I knew that.
You're good, Violet. Actually, my question's just a more specific version of hers.
So when my kid came out, I am a science nerd, and the first thing I did is like read Scientific American, and all the articles they have, readers. Oh, how just happened? What did I do? It was in my womb. This is fascinating. I'm just wondering, as a doctor, and you said
Physical therapist.
you're a physical therapist. I mean, but you're a family practice doctor. So I'm more interested in Angie's answer.
Yes. Totally. I always am as well.
I'm just curious, do you have, for the science nerds, an elevator speech, Angie, that explains this is what happened in the womb and everything? I mean, there's theories,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do you go there? Or you don't?
No, I don't, yeah, I don't think it, I've never heard a good explanation for that I would hang my hat on, yeah. But
I'm curious.
The thing that comes.
People are complex. I
Yeah.
don't think we can say there's one. No, no. I'd love to hear what you say.
Honestly, I always say they don't really know what your brain develops from 6 to 8 weeks. And so whatever's going on in my life, I was flooding my child with female hormones during that period, most likely. But then they don't know this, right? But then later on, when the organs develop, I was flooding my kid with a different cocktail for whatever reason. And the way I think about it, it's kind of a miracle we're not all non-binary. It's just like we are all. I mean, literally. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, one thing I often say is I think you talked about online, but I used to kind of use the Barbie and Ken. Like there's Barbie and Ken, and then most people are in between, right? I mean, there's a part at the very beginning where I was like, I'm not like those girls going to prom. Like I'm not all sparkly like Bonnie Violet.
It's all artificial.
I mean, this is amazing, but it's not mine. This is not mine, right? So yeah, I just think, I mean, I was a tomboy growing up, and I think so much goes into it, and I think that the age at which you realize kind of who you are, I wondered if, like just me being a physician and a lot of people, and when we go places, well, I should say when Mike goes places without me and they maybe gay themed, all the guys are thinking about that cute guy and how well he dresses. So, he's not like bearded up and carrying his gun and stuff, right? So, I think everybody's different, right?
So it's a continuum. It's a bell
Yeah,
curve.
exactly.
And when people say, boy, I would never want to have a transgender kid or a gay kid, then don't have kids. Because the reality is when sperm meets egg, that is one possibility that can fall anywhere along that line. Just because the middle kind of third is what we're used to seeing, that is not normal. It's just more common. So, I mean, I love your explanation. It's great. And in 10 years, we'll think, wow, I can't believe we believe that. Who knows? But all I know is it's a possibility when sperm meets egg, as is everybody here, and where we fall on that spectrum. And why we've decided to draw a line around these elements and say they are somehow wrong is just beyond me.
And I get so yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. I get a little challenged by the questions around like the science and like the facts and stuff, because I'm like I am, so I think like there's trans people, like period, and so for me, like are they happy? Are they living into who they feel they are right now? Like to me, those are like the questions I could give two hoots about. You know what I mean? And not to like disregard, but sometimes I feel like it's either one or the other, right? And so I think that was just something that came to mind. There was a question here.
Just a question, but also a comment, because as a physician myself, I think a awakening that I've been reckoning with since I was in medical school is also the framing of so much of what we know in medicine came from cis het white men who were experimenting on people and had a very specific vision for what they thought, science and appropriate experimentation was. And so I really struggle with that when people talk about the science and the medicine and the history of it, because I think you have been misled by who was writing those history books that we were supposed to.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can help myself. I'm not supposed to just be dropping that one that I agree. I also point out how much this is a colonized mindset. Right, our family's Asian, and when places like India started to recognize that their gender, there were a lot of people writing about, oh, look at India catching up with the times. But if you actually ask Indians, this is India decolonized. We had a gender long before colonizers arrived. And so this idea of early medicine is getting framed in this system.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments or about?
Oh,
There's one over here.
Rachel.
Stop hurting me. Stop joking, kind of not. Have you guys ever thought about maybe holding space for having a conversation with parents that are not reacting well to these situations? I feel like I know a lot of kids and or adults, children, that would really benefit from having other parents have conversations with their parents, because a lot of times I feel like as a parent, you sit there and you go, well, I know better than my child. I'm gonna be better than you know yourself.
Yeah, I'm super glad you asked that. So that kind of gets to the point of why we wrote the book. So the first reason is to kind of be an antidote to all the lies and to kind of tell a true story. And the second thing would be to help parents like us to find themselves in a situation where again, we did not anticipate any of this. So this was, which is great, but it's like, we didn't have the tools, we didn't have the knowledge. But the third thing, speaking to your point, is I kind of see this book as a Trojan horse to start a conversation on human dignity and bodily autonomy on a larger scale. This is just the framing that we have put it in, but it's really intended to kind of spur that conversation, because that's really where we need to be, what we need to be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a question.
And we'd be happy to.
Go ahead.
We'd be happy to.
Yes, we'd be happy to have somebody who wants to be by the same.
So you have a question from YouTube. Dan on YouTube says, I'd love advice if you're willing. I'm genderqueer, an advocate, and parent to a trans son. My intuition tells me to fight for my kids' rights, and he asks me to leave it be. He uses the girls' bathroom and is called his dead name by most teachers at school. Obviously, his friends call him his name, but I'm feeling a bit stuck because he wants to just exist without my help. But I feel this is damaging.
Hi, Van.
Yeah, that's a lot.
We love this.
And so I'm super glad I couldn't make this in person, because I'm just really touched by you sharing your story. Anything you'd like to say to them?
Wow. I think we have to respect our kids and where they are, and keep telling them how proud we are of them, and just offering what we can and letting them make that decision. I think that's so hard as a parent to want to do something that they don't want you to do. But that's tough. I can actually say, Eve and I had a conversation with her doctor about her before she started hormones, about saving her ability to have children in the future. And she was 14 at that time. And that was really hard. She was like, nope, I'll adopt. If I want kids, I'll adopt. There's lots of kids that need good parents. And I think that was the one time that I was kind of struck by how emotional I was. But I was like, I said, oh, so many people might say that when they're young, but when they're older, they may change their mind. And she was just so definite. And, when I thought about like all the possibilities of how you would save sperm, and forcing a child to do that, I thought, nope, not going there. She's making this call. So, but it's hard.
Awesome. Well, I want to be mindful of time. We're right at the time that we're ending as far as like being up here. We do have the space for about another 50 minutes or so. So feel free to help yourself to waters and snacks and talk amongst yourselves. First of all, thank Angie and Michael for their time. And they have books for sale on the left. There's a Venmo QR code if you'd like to get a copy of the book. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and also, if you aren't prepared to buy one tonight, they are rediscovered. Last week we were number 5 on their list.
I will tell you the needy part. So Mike is like, he'll give a friend a book, or he'll know they have it, and like, I think it's about 34 hours he expects to have a response. And if you don't get to him, he gets really anxious about how they need the book, and that was the needy part.
This last week we were number 10.
That's great. It's also common, buy them for your friends and your family.
Right.
But yeah, thanks everyone for showing up this evening. Thank you to the Laws and Human Rights Humans. I always get my words mixed up. Thank you to this place. I'm checking out other times. And I think that's it. Check out Trans Joy Boise. We did record this tonight, so you will be able, if you want to share this with a friend or a family member or somebody, it will be wherever you listen to podcasts at Trans Joy Boise or on YouTube. So thanks so much for coming tonight.
Thank you so much.